Land Rover presents TSN Sunday.
Sports has offered millions of athletes a ticket to a better life. Sometimes the change is dramatic, and so is the journey. When Augusto Duquesne defected from the Cuban basketball team at the World Championships in 1994, he became another of Castro's castaways. Here's Jim Van Horn.
In August of 1994, Toronto played host to basketball's World Championships. 16 of the top nations in the world competing for basketball's grandest prize. Cuba, just one of those countries vying for its own place in basketball history. On day 2 of the tournament, Cuba's chances for a medal faded when word came that Cuban basketball star Richard Matienzo defected with hopes of starting a more lucrative pro career in North America.
He's no NBA player. If he defected because he thinks he's going to jump from the big leagues, just forget it.
Alfredo Jordan defected from Cuba over 14 years ago and now runs a successful shoe repair shop in Toronto. He aided in the defection of Richard Matienzo.
He told me about his persecution over there, that he being mistreated by the government, and he had problems with them, and then most of all, that his family needs him out of the country. They have 2 kids that he wants to raise and so on, and we believe all that. Found out it wasn't true.
Matienzo's defection angered Cuban officials. They wanted answers. So with nowhere else to turn, they approached Matienzo's teammate and best friend, Augusto Duquesne.
He defended, it's not my problem. The coach said, it's the problem, and for every other player, you is the principal problem. He said, okay.
He was the only true honest person. He was the one who got in trouble. He was chosen to be the scapegoat by the Cuban officials. He was threatened to go to jail and be punished because he didn't snitch. So that's when I decide, well, this is the guy we really have to help, because he's really a refugee.
Alfredo Jordan knew he had to act fast. The Cuban officials had already told Augusto that he was going to pay the price for his friend's defection. Jordan went to the Toronto Star building to contact Randy Starkman, the reporter credited with breaking the news of Richard Matienzo's defection.
Never handled a defection before. I wasn't sure, you know, as a reporter, how we as a star, how involved we were to get, because here was somebody who didn't know, you know, where to turn.
Starkman realized Augusto was in danger, so he and Alfredo Jordan came up with a plan to help the young Cuban defect.
We set up escape, him going to the lobby of the hotel, so we will wait for him outside. We talked to some of the members of the Angola team, so they can surround him and trying to blend him so nobody gonna go and hurt him. You see, they have the order that Augusto or anybody else who wants to defect should be beat by the other members of the team.
Here we were in my neighbor's, you know, minivan, you know, here we are in Toronto. I think he had just, you know, bought this minivan, and we just had no idea what was going to happen, whether they were going to try to drag this guy back, you know, what was our involvement, what were we going to do?
The plan was already set into motion. There was no turning back. And by this time, Augusto had left his hotel room, having absolutely no idea what resistance he may come up against.
I look around for everybody in the security, the Cuba, from Cuba, around the hotel. I walk around looking for everybody.
Surprisingly, everything went according to plan. Augusto casually walked through the lobby of the hotel and out onto the busy streets of Toronto in what were his final few steps to freedom.
Very scared, I don't have a clothes, no have nothing, no have money, nothing.
The ironic yet tragic part in all of this is that Augusto left Cuba without ever having any intentions of defecting. But because the Cuban government was using him and his family as their scapegoat for Matienzo's defection, Augusto felt that his family would be better off if he remained in Canada.
My intention is not defect. My intention is come back to Cuba.
But Augusto did not return to Cuba, and just 24 hours after his decision to stay in Canada, he celebrated his newfound freedom with Alfredo Jordan and some of his close friends, while back home, his family unknowingly suffered the consequences.
His father is 78 years old, blind. He can't work. His mother was a school teacher. She was expelled from her job. because he's undefected.
Put yourself in his position. You've never, you've always been under this regime where basically you're always told what to do, and you're walking out into freedom. But what does freedom really mean? What's going to happen with this new life, and what's going to happen to the family that you left behind?
It has taken some time, but Augusto is adjusting to life in Canada well. He's enrolled in Durham College and attends classes that are full of students trying to adjust to the new lives they have chosen for themselves.
No, you going to Canada?
I came to Canada in the summer.
Do you come to Canada in winter? Yeah. No, I did.
When Augusto finishes classes, he makes his way to the athletic center where he holds a part-time job, earning himself a little extra money to help pay for school. After work, Augusto goes to basketball practice, where he gets a chance to forget about all that he has gone through. The basketball court is where there's no language barrier. Head coach Kerry Vincent is happy to have Augusto as a member of his team, but he also feels that his time at Durham College is very important to his development in a new society.
One of the important things here is that he gets something out of coming to college here, and I think he has, because from day one when I first met him, he didn't speak a word of English, and I mean not a word. And now he's capable of carrying on a reasonable conversation. And so I think he's gotten something out of it.
One thing is for sure, Durham College has got something out of Augusto attending college. He led the league in scoring for 2 straight years and was a major part of the team's success during his stay. This is where Augusto calls home. He lives in the basement of Dave Stewart, athletic director at the college. Stewart took Augusto in despite already having his hands full with 3 young children.
It was scary at first. We weren't quite sure if we were doing the right thing. Once we met him, we knew that he was a gentleman. He took care of himself, but he sure did eat a lot.
You eat a lot.
I eat a lot because big guy.
The girls have been a very important part of Augusto's transition to North American culture. They are the driving force behind Augusto learning English, and they very much become like his little sisters.
Yep, now press up. There.
Okay, you just press these buttons and these buttons. Okay?
There's no question for Augusto that this is his family in his home away from home. For now, the only reminder he has of his family back home are a few pictures he's managed to get through the mail. It's obvious that Augusto has had a hard time adjusting to life in a new country. It's not always easy making the transition to a completely different society.
They called me once and said, well, Augusto stays in the washroom around 3 or 4 hours and the water running and don't let anybody sleep. And when I talked to Augusto, I found that he was doing all his clothes by hand. He was washing it by hand.
He wasn't used to a washer and dryer. That's the way he was used to doing things back in Cuba. And we'd come down and we'd find socks and underwear and T-shirts and sweatsuits just all over the place downstairs.
Augusto has adjusted to life in Canada very well. He's made it his home and is dealing with the fact that he may never see his family again. Given that, there's one thing that he has a very hard time dealing with.
In Canada, all day, it's winter, it's cold for me. It's cold, very cold for me. I like Canada, but I like too much winter. It's fall of season. Wow.
And yesterday we were informed that Augusto has signed a 7-month contract to play professionally in Australia. He'll head down under on the 1st of May. Just ahead on TSN today, Sports Desk at noon Eastern, followed by the NASCAR Winston Cup Racing, live from Bristol, Tennessee.